Okay, for this week we're going to be talking a little bit about writing code and then sub-launching and the ultimate ArcGIS tools. Really where we're headed towards here is um, getting anything to work. In other words, solving any problem that you can solve uh, given Python. So first, just really quickly, I wanted to say for formatting code, um, when you go out onto the web and you look at examples, you will see things that are written like this. And basically, I'm just asking you, please don't do this. If you look at this, they're saying list equals, and then they're starting a list. There's the end of the list at the end. And then inside of there, they're going row 0 for row and ArcPy. I don't know what the heck this means. And this would just be impossible to debug, right? You can't put any debuggers and debug break lines in there. You can't print in there. I guess you could, but it's just bizarre. And more on the web, there's people writing code like this, and this is just unacceptable from a development, debugging, and maintenance standpoint, especially when all you have to do is write it like this. Okay, so some people actually feel like, oh, we used fewer lines. Well, yeah, but making fewer lines of code and having it be completely unsupportable doesn't work, doesn't make sense. It's not a good approach. So here you can see we get a search cursor. We start a list array for the row in the rows we got from the search cursor. We append each value to our list. Nice and simple. This code, these 5 lines actually do exactly the same thing as this one line, but I feel it's much more readable. So please write code this way. And everybody's been doing that so far, so really appreciate it. All right, so one of the key things I'm going to show you how to do is how to sub-launch other programs. And this will solve a whole bunch of different problems. Basically, when you can't get everything into a script, a Python script that you want it to do, you can sub-launch other programs and get them to do something and then come back to Python and do something else. And this is one of the things that gives you a huge amount of flexibility. So I'm going to show you this first of all just with a simple example where we take and import the library subprocess, and then we go ahead and launch, yes, Internet Explorer. Why not? So it only takes 2 calls to do that, and I'm just going to go ahead and run it. Okay, and we launch it, and you see up comes Internet Explorer. Yay! With Humboldt's page in it. Now, there's a couple things going on here. The first one is, notice that to launch Internet Explorer, I go ahead and put in the complete path to the program. Now, if all I do is just put in the path, then it's going to launch Internet Explorer, but it's going to go to some default page. Okay, IE's news page. All right, but we can pass in another parameter. Okay, so we're launching IE, and then we're passing a parameter for the first website we want to go to. Don't mind the // That's because we need to do HTTP colon, excuse me, //. And of course, Python treats each one of these pairs of slashes as a single slash. So now we pass it a parameter that tells IE, launch yourself, and then that first parameter is a link to a website that it uses to go get for the initial website. Okay, and this is how computers worked for a couple decades under Control Program for Microcomputers, CPM, DOS, and even before that with mainframe and mini computers. They use command line interfaces very much like this. So we're sort of going underneath Windows to make this kind of stuff happen. But what I'm going to show you is how to do something much more useful than this. So like, let's say we wanted to be able to put up a chart in a Python script, and that Python script didn't support the charting package, which used to be the case with ArcMap, and then we would sub-launch another Python script, or you need to access a library from one version of Python, and the library is not supported in that version, so you could write another script in another you could write one script that launches one version of Python, say 2.7, and then you could write a script in 3.7 that then launches that other script in 2.7. So you could, from Python, you can launch other programs to make them do things, or you could launch other Python scripts. And this is really what gives you this huge amount of flexibility to do pretty much anything you want to do. So the next step now is to create a script that's going to be our subprocess. In other words, I'm going to go to the website and copy down this charting code and paste that into a new script. And this is going to be our, tab that over. This is going to be our subprocess that we're going to launch from another Python script. So I'll just call that subprocess.py. And you'll see that in here I'm including some libraries, NumPy, Matplotlib, so I can do some charting. PyQt with its widgets so that we can put up a message box. And then in here, here's the key part. So I set up some local variables, mu, or the mean of a histogram distribution, sigma, the standard deviation, and then the number of values. And I do this so that I can run my program and see how it works. And this is what I recommend doing with any of these subprocesses, is go ahead and run the program, develop it ahead of time in a separate package or by itself, get it working well, then put it underneath a subprocess, because launching subprocesses is difficult to debug. You don't get to debug this level. Anyway, it'll make sense in a minute. All right, so then we've got some arguments. I'm going to come back to those. And then you'll see I've got a Qt message box that I throw up. And down here, I then create an array of random values, create a histogram, and then the rest of this is all just to put up the plot. Okay, the really interesting part is here, and this is how we get arguments from a command line. And this will make more sense in a second when I show it to you from the calling process. But know that this is how you get those initial arguments, like when we sent the HSU website link into Internet Explorer. Okay, this is how you get those arguments, and you'll see that I'm going to pass in 3 arguments, and I grab those here by going sys.argv, or argument value, and then go through those arguments and pull them out, the mean, sigma, standard deviation, and the number of values. And then I do put up this message box using Qt, because I want to be able to see those. And this is just for debugging. I'll comment this out eventually. And then we use those values to generate our random numbers. Okay, and you can see that if I change these values, like let's change the mean, and then I run this, there's my dialog from Qt letting me know what the values are. And then here's our dialog, and oh look, the mean is shifted over to 120. Okay, so the next step is to create our parent process that is going to go ahead and call our subprocess. I'm just going to call this parent process, and I'm going to go down to the web, and here's that code. Okay, and once again I've imported the subprocess library so I can call a subprocess. And then I've got my paths here, which I want to check and make sure those are all right. I'm in ctemp subprocess. You want to make sure those map to wherever you want to be. And then we're going to launch a specific version of Python. Now we could just say python.exe, but if we do that, it's going to launch whatever the default version of Python is on our computer, which may not be the one you want. So I made sure that I went down to my Python install of 3.7, found the python.exe, and I used the path to that python.exe and put in the full path here. Okay, here you see our variables again, and here you see us building the command line. I'm going to go ahead and run this with a breakpoint so that you can see what the command looks like before we send it. So here you can see that we've got python.exe, so we're running python.exe, then we're passing a parameter to python.exe that's the path to our subprocess. So that's saying, hey, python.exe, run this script. Then we've got our other three parameters. These three parameters will be passed into subprocess, just as they were before. Okay, so if we go ahead and run this, you'll see our dialog from subprocess with our values in it, and then you'll see our histogram. So let's go ahead and change our values. Let's make our mean minus 100 or 1,000. Let's go crazy. Change our sigma maybe to 10, and I'm going to change the number of values to say 500. And now we'll go ahead and run that. Nothing up my sleeve. There's our dialog from our subprocess showing that we've got the mean, sigma, and the number of points, number of entries in the histogram, just the way we specified them here. We'll click OK, and there's our histogram. So you could do this with any number of programs. We do it with R pretty regularly. It's a really common one. You can actually automate a lot of other programs. You can even automate programs like Excel to do things from Python. I'm not sure exactly what you'd want to. You can pass Visual Basic Code to Excel to do things, or you can put Visual Basic Code inside of it. So there's a lot of different things you can do. In fact, this really makes what you can do with Python just endless. This on top of the libraries is what makes it so very flexible. All right, thanks.